Built a business that became one of the largest solar marketing companies on planet Earth. Right before my 40th birthday, everything was taken from me. And that wasn't too long ago. That was 2019. Imagine having to reinvent yourself at 40 with a wife, 2 children, lots of expenses. July 3rd, 2019, I had my worst day. Fast forward to November of 2020, I had my best day. Did $1 million in a matter of about 5 hours.
To somebody who's maybe sort of down on themselves, they find themselves in a similar situation, or they feel like hopeless maybe in this environment, maybe where you were in 2019, like what advice would you have for them?
What are the things in your life that are a liability? Is it your drinking? Is it your eating habits? Is it your sleep pattern? Is it your sedation on Instagram, Netflix, whatever it is? Make a list, but then also make a list of your assets, your Rolodex. Like, who do you know? Who can you call?
They want to make enough money where they don't ever have to work again.
Right.
I'm like, well, then why do all billionaires still work?
Right, because they're contributors. And
it's not about not working.
Yeah.
It's about not doing what you hate.
Right.
So great. So don't do that. Don't do what you hate. There's a couple things you can do with your business to get the value up, but also in this competitive environment, you have to make it more friendly as well. So what are some of the things that a business owner could do?
What does our business look like when we get back? Like, did we create enough infrastructure to have it work without us? Or is it so reliant on us that the moment we leave, the whole thing implodes?
Nick, there's a topic that I've been talking about pretty extensively. As a matter of fact, if you go back on my channel from the very beginning, it's a topic that I hit over and over and over, and that is a great wealth transfer. The reason why I talk about the great wealth transfer is because I made a lot of money early in my career, had a lot of success, some might call it luck, multiple businesses that I built up, multiple exits, a Fortune 500 exit, tens of millions of dollars of real estate. And when 2008 came and the whole great financial crash happened, I got caught up in that like millions of other Americans and basically got wiped out. And I vowed to my wife that I'd never let that happen to me again. And so I started learning about the financial system, macroeconomics. And I learned a concept that money is like energy. It can't be created or destroyed. It just gets transferred. And so when I lost my wealth, someone else got it. I didn't like that. And so I've spent the last, 12, 14 years studying these wealth transfers. And they happen at times of economic turmoil, like the great financial crash. They happen under like new technological revolutions. But they also happen through demographics as well. And there's a big wealth transfer that's about to happen. I know you're sort of at the forefront of this. About 12 million baby boomers, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, about 12 million baby boomers own businesses that will either be shut down or transferred in the next decade or so.
Correct. Yeah, and you're not wrong about the first topic, which is money, like we call it currency. And the word of currency is current. So it's constantly flowing. It's just a current. So you hear a lot of people, all the time I hear entrepreneurs say, I need to make more money. I'm like, make more money? Are you baking a cake? What do you mean you need to make more money? You got a printing press in your basement I don't know about? It's that, to your point, money doesn't disappear. It merely transfers hands. And it's this current that keeps flowing continuously. And actually, with you study the laws of inertia, it keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. This is why we're seeing trillion-dollar valuations. And so right now, the baby boomers are they've accumulated the largest amount of wealth in human history. And 10,000 of them a day are retiring. Well, where's that money going to go?
Yeah,
that money's going to transfer.
Before you dive into that's great. I love that currency. And the reason why I've studied this is, like I said, when I lost my money, someone else got that. I didn't like that. But I decided if I could figure this out, I could be on the receiving end 100%. Of it. And so, like, instead of, there's a quote I often say that poor people think that the game is rigged against them, and rich people recognize the game is rigged and they just learn how to play it. So it's like, rather than like this happened to me, it happened for me. I learned something. How can I be on the right end of it? And I've often thought about it. I haven't thought about it in the terms of currents, but I like that analogy. But sort of like, I think about it when we were kids, there was the game show, The Price is Right.
Yeah, of course.
And they had those like plexiglass boxes, and you had like 60 seconds with all the money flying around to grab as much. And we have like trillions of dollars moving around the economy on a daily basis. And all we have to do is just grab a little bit and funnel it in. So I kind of want to talk about that. I mean, on one hand, it looks like the economy is really bad and things are getting worse. And there's plenty of reasons we can look at doom and gloom for sure. But on the other hand, to your point, the amount of money is getting bigger. It's moving around even more. And then we have events where it funnels in. So we could learn how to just bring a little bit into our own pocket.
Right. Imagine like a river, right? The river is fluid. The river is flowing. Like, you just need to build your own little eddy and carve off like, you can never like completely deplete the river, but you can have enough water to supply you and your family and generations for many years to come if you can learn how to direct some of that towards you, you know, and what we're seeing and what I think you do a great job of, and what I'm certainly trying to do, is make people aware of it, because it's so abundant. Like, you couldn't capture all of it. I couldn't capture all of it. 10,000 of us couldn't capture all of it, but we can capture some of it. And that sum could be the sum of generations to come. I mean, that's certainly what I'm trying to do. You know, and I actually talk about you a lot, like when I'm when I'm out on the road, or because, you know, our friendship goes back a long time. And I remember when you came to me, I don't even know what it was, 2013, 2014, one of those early days of Bitcoin. You're like, dude, I think I'm getting into this thing called Bitcoin. And I was like, what are you even talking about? And you were trying to explain it to me. And, you know, like I kind of like went full Will Ferrell and old school and blacked out. I'm like, I don't even know what he just said. Yeah. But like, you know, I certainly had the opportunity to get in I mean, what was Bitcoin at that time?
Yeah, a couple $100.
Yeah. What is it now?
60,000-ish.
Right. And I had several $100,000, several millions of dollars flowing in a year that I could have carved out my own eddy. I could have jumped into that upstream river, and it would have been a raging, you know, sea of wealth down the road. Yeah. And so I talk to people all the time about, in our lifetime, I don't care how old you are, you know, you're our age in our mid 40s, or you're just starting out, you know, your career as a young person. We've all seen these cyclical things that have come in, you know, like you and I, certainly we've seen the rise and fall of the real estate market. Actually, if we rewind even further, you and I have seen the boom and bust of the .com. Remember the dot bust. Then the rise and fall of the real estate market. We saw the advent of social media. We saw the advent of apps. We saw the advent and the growth of Bitcoin. Like, we've seen the stock market go all over the place. And everybody sits around and goes, God, if I only knew. Right? I call it the Al Bundy theory. You know, they live in yesterday. If I only knew that this was happening, I would have. This is the Nick Long talking about Bitcoin, like today. Like, Mark, you were so right. You know, I was so wrong. Yeah. And so what I try
let me write that down. We have that recorded, I think.
This man was more than right about many things, but certainly nailed it on Bitcoin. Yeah. Like, I think I've told you I was going to do with the Iraqi dinar. Remember that? Yeah. You're like, dude, what are you thinking? Yeah. Thank God I didn't do that.
People still talk about that.
Yeah. Thank God I didn't do that. But like, I wish I would have done it with the Bitcoin. And so in this wealth transfer, in this current that is now like being created, it, like, you can't escape it. Like, this is going to happen. This is the greatest wealth transfer in human history. There's no amount of making money. It's about aligning yourself and attracting yourself to carve out like your little eddy of this raging river.
Yeah. So let's talk about how we do that. Now, this is a message that hopefully is going to educate and inspire people. And I do just want to just throw out real quickly, I kind of threw out my story in 2008. I remember, you know, I'm good friends now with Robert Kiyosaki. He's been my mentor for books forever. I did a show with him at his place in Phoenix about a year ago. And we were doing this interview. And I said, you know, people leave this comment like, why would I listen to you? You lost all your money, you know? And he's like, that's the stupidest comment anyone could ever say. You know, he's like, because you only learn through that process, right? And even still today, I love to talk about my story because I want to be relatable and like, hey, look, I've been punched in the face. And people still like to leave comments. Oh, why would you lost. Right. Like no professional or whatever has never lost. I mean, every billionaire's gone bankrupt or whatever. So, and the reason I kind of threw my story out, and if you wouldn't mind maybe talking about your story, the only reason I want that is because, I don't want people to think like me and you, like, oh, look at these guys, oh, silver spoon in their mouth, whatever. Like, I could never do what they're doing. Like, it wasn't that long ago we weren't able to rub two pennies together either. And so I want to have an educational and inspirational conversation. And so maybe we can start there.
Yeah. I mean, so first of all, I'm 44, I'll be 45 coming up in September. And I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. And if like you had some sort of tracking beacon on me, it would look something like a bottle rocket. It would just be all over the place.
Every entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah. And so I was a millionaire on paper by the time I was 24. like sold that business because we made some bad decisions for $1. So that was my first exit. Then I actually became a multimillionaire, like in the purest form of like millions of dollars flowing into my business and my personal bank account. Sold that business by the time I was 30. Had no financial literacy, had no Mark Moss, had no market disrupting information, and I had no financial literacy. Fast forward, like I had to reinvent myself, and then I built a business that was, and you were an integral part of that, built a business that became one of the largest solar marketing companies on planet Earth. Thought I nailed it. I was like, this is it. Like, I've done it. On the eve of my 39th birthday.
How many employees? I mean, how much revenue?
So 30 million in revenue, 375 employees, all U.S. based, all under one roof. If you can imagine. I mean, you can because you were there, you saw it. And I started this with nothing. Literally, my wife and I, we had $75,000 of debt. We had what I call a big ass why. Like, we wanted to get married, we want to have children, we want to travel the world, we want to build a life of abundance. And I had a cubic zirconia on her finger because it was the only thing I could afford. But I knew I couldn't afford not to marry this woman. I knew I couldn't afford not to go all in on me and her and like recreating like what I knew was possible for our life. And so fast forward, like we turned that big ass Y into 2 concurrent businesses doing multiple 8 figures a year. I think between the both companies, it was probably 400 employees. I had an 88 acre ranch up in Idaho. It was gorgeous. I was living the life, down here in Newport Beach, and then, head up, put my dungarees on, get in my side-by-side, chop down trees, make firewood. Like, it was amazing. I remember on the eve of my 39th birthday, I took a helicopter, like, off of the property to a tarmac, got on a private jet. It wasn't my private jet, just we chartered it. Flew to LA, grabbed the wife, got on a first-class flight to Switzerland, landed in Switzerland, got up into the Alps and did this vintage car rally, right? It was billionaires and millionaires. We were by all imagination the smallest fish in that pond. And I remember driving like with my wife, and it was right around my birthday, and I told her, I'm like, God, I'm 39 years old. And we were just having this very reflective moment of like pure gratitude. Of course we were surrounded by, materialism, but like it was this material moment that mattered more of like where we were, when where we were and where we were at that moment. And I said, can you imagine where we're going to be on my 40th birthday? Little did I know.
Yeah.
And on right before my 40th birthday, everything was taken from me. A lot of people think they have problems. Like, have a document show up on your doorstep that says the United States of America versus you, versus your wife, versus your company that you work so hard to build. And imagine all of it being stripped away in a matter of 14 days. Like, that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
And that wasn't too long ago. That was 2019, right? And like, imagine having to reinvent yourself at 40 with a wife, 2 children, like lots of expenses and no income, no backstop, and having to do an about face on the very industry that you built it all in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, that's my life.
I had to at 30. And a lot of people listening, I'm sure, have had the same experience, which is why I wanted you to tell the story. So let's keep going.
Yeah. And so, and I realized that, like, destinations inside your dreams don't change, but the pathway often does, right? And so it's like San Clemente, California doesn't change, but there's many ways to get here, right? There's many roads that lead here. There's many different modalities to get here, but this city itself doesn't move. And if you have something that's anchored to your heart, your dream, like, it doesn't change, but you can't be so beholden to the current path that you're on, because life is going to drop like bombs, potholes, barricades, barbed wire, and you have to be willing to pivot, but never lose sight of that target. And so when I was running that business, like, I had this vision of like what I call like businessman or woman over business plan. Businessman or woman over business plan. Like, the businessman or woman makes the business plan. Like, they're the ones that architect it, but they're ultimately the ones that have to execute it. And so my dream was to be able to build a platform where I could like look across the table from a businessman. I kind of cared about his business plan, but I cared more about the man. Like like Mark Moss. Like, I don't care what you do, I will invest in it because I know you. I know your grit. I know your resolve. I know the L's that you've taken on the way to the W that most people see.
Right.
And so this was my dream, was to kind of democratize the private equity process, to demystify the rigged game, and to put the power back into the hands of the people who rightfully deserve it, which is the entrepreneur and the business owner. Well, when that bomb got dropped on me by our good, great nation here, I mean,
one of the 3-letter government agencies that just got gutted by the Supreme Court decision yesterday.
Yeah, the FTC.
FTC.
It's the alphabet mafia. I'll never forget in that moment, like, it was like, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like, you're telling me that my company can continue as is, no changes, which would indicate that the company's not doing anything wrong. But me and my wife, who created these 375 jobs, who paid multiple millions in taxes, who've contributed to society and charities, we have to go? Like, it just doesn't make any sense, right? But I stopped trying to make sense of it. I stopped trying to, blame. And I just said, all right, my destination's still there. This road got nuked.
Yeah.
Well, what's our fallback, and not fall back on our dream, but fall back and double back to get to the destination. And so I said, listen, there's a difference between resources, like in the form of capital, human capital, and resourcefulness. And a lot of people get those mixed up. A lot of people think because they don't have the financial resources that they can't be resourceful. Most entrepreneurs, most really wealthy people are the most resourceful people you've ever seen in your life. And there was things that they took from me, right? They took my money, they took my company temporarily. They took my identity temporarily. They took my self-worth because it was wound up in my net worth. But what they didn't take is this, like my relationships with people like you. People I could call that had a big L before, that could like give me proof that life was going to be okay after the fact.
Yeah.
That could give me encouragement. They couldn't take like my mindset, my skills that I had developed over that 7-8 year period of time, and they couldn't unless I allowed them to take my drive and to take my destination. They could take the road I was currently on, but the destination, they never changed because they didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I had to work really hard. I had to work really, really hard. I'd like to tell you that because of all my personal development and, the masterminds and the things I was involved in, that I just did some burpees and, went on the carnivore diet and all was well with the world. Like, it was on the contrary. Like, I literally went into a place of self-deprecation and self-loathing and it was actually in a crucial conversation with a good friend that he said, listen, I think you're asking yourself all the wrong questions. Like, what's the greatest asset that you have? And I said, well, I don't know. It's all gone.
Yeah.
He's like, no, like you're not seeing it. It's you. It's your mind. It's your heart. It's your relationships. It's all of these things. Like, that's going to give you like the ROI, right? Like the ROI, like eye to eye, me looking at myself in the mirror. So anyway, long story short, is on the eve of my worst day, birthed the best days that I've had. And oftentimes, like, we get so hung up on living in the yesteryear and the rear view mirror that we fail to see like that destination has never changed.
Yeah.
And what was crazy is that, like, I had my single largest day as an entrepreneur ever after all of that happened. It didn't happen right away. But in 2020, so that was in 2019, that was July 3rd. Oh my God, it's today.
Yeah. Wow.
Holy shit. Dude, that just gave me chills.
It's tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, close enough.
Yeah,
right?
close enough.
On July 3rd, 2019, I had my worst day. Fast forward to November of 2020, I had my best day.
Man.
Did $1 million in a matter of about 5 hours. $1 million in 5 hours. I'd done plenty of $1 million months, plenty of $1 million weeks, infinite $1 million years at a $1 million day, actually half day.
Yeah. I want to dig into that a little bit just for everybody listening so they can get started. And then we'll talk about if you're business owners and maybe some opportunities if you're not or want to get into that. But so this is something that I say a lot too. And the reason why I say this a lot too, and you say it a lot too, and any successful person says it, is because I believe this is the way it is. Sort of like we'll get into like I want to talk about like how people can get into this opportunity, this wealth transfer, and if you have a business, what you can do. But you can really break down a business. You can grow a business 3 ways, right? Get more customers, sell more to the customers, or increase the frequency of the way they buy. Like super simple. But getting the customers is the hardest part. Selling more to them is easy, right? But everyone focuses on the hardest part instead of the easy part. But also in the game of building wealth, most people just want to make more money. But really there's financial capital, making money. There's relationship capital, people they know, and then there's the mental capital, the skills that they have. And the problem that I see is sort of like in the business analogy, they go after the hardest one, which is trying to get more customers. In this analogy, most people are still trying to go after the hardest one, which is trying to make money, but they don't realize that money is a byproduct. Money is a byproduct of the relationships and the skills that you have. So if you're trying to build your relationships and trying to build your skills, those are things, to the story you just told us, can never be taken from you. Right. And so like when you're investing, I could invest into Bitcoin and I could lose my money. I could invest in any stock, whatever. I could lose my money. But if I invest into a skill or into a relationship, I can't really lose that. Maybe a relationship if I damage that. But the skills, I can't lose that, right? And so I just want to hit on that piece of your story because you lost everything. But what your mentor told you was your skills that you had and the relationships. And my story is no different. When I got started or had to rebuild as well, I had sold my businesses. I had no more income. And I had a friend, one of our mutual friends, I won't name him here, but that said, hey, I have a mortgage company. If you want to generate leads for me, I'll share some revenue with you. And I had a relationship. He offered me the deal. I knew a little bit of skills of how to do it, and I pulled it off. So to somebody who's maybe sort of down on themselves, they find themselves in a similar situation, or they feel like hopeless maybe in this environment, maybe where you were in 2019, like what advice would you have for them?
First of all, like stop the pity party because it's not going to serve you. You know, like you gotta stop perpetuating the behavior that's keeping you exactly where you are. Like in order to get a new result, you have to come at it with a new action item, right? Yeah. So the pity party ain't going to serve you. So suck it up, buttercup, and then start taking an inventory. Like assets and liabilities, it's investing, right? Assets and liabilities. What are the current liabilities you have? And I'm not just talking like I owe this much on my car. Like what are the things in your life that are a liability? Is it your drinking? Is it your eating habits? Is it your sleep pattern? Is it your sedation on Instagram, Netflix, whatever it is? Make a list, but then also make a list of your assets, like your Rolodex. Like who do you know? Who can you call? Like I actually went through this exercise, and it wasn't too long ago, where I was like, man, what am I going to do? Like, I need to get this out into the hands of people. Well, who better to get it out in the hands of than the people that know, like, and trust you, right? Mm-hmm. And we all try to build it on Instagram or whatever we're doing. I literally went into my phone, and I can show you when we're done, that if you go to contacts, like you can actually export your contacts. I didn't even know this. Like if you go to your contacts, I had 1,600 contacts. I went to hit this button. It said export. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then made some crazy file I'd never heard of. But there's this thing called Google. And I typed in like how to convert XYZ to a CSV. And it gave me a widget. And I downloaded said widget. So I ended up with 1,600 contacts. And so then I sorted those contacts by like entrepreneurs, family, friends. I kind of put them into buckets. I ended up with 600 like contacts that I had done business with. It blew my mind. And then I rated them from like 5 to 1, 5 being a Mark Moss that like he's going to pick up the phone on the first ring and we're going to go, hey buddy, what's going on? We're going to pick up right where we left off. A 1 being like, God, I kind of remember that guy, but I don't remember what we did together, you know? And I started with the 5s and I started reaching out to people. And that list in 30 days generated $250,000 worth of income. So that's an asset. Your contacts are assets. What skill sets do you have? Those are assets. What positive habits and patterns of behaviors do you have? That's an asset. And just start eliminating the liabilities. You want a higher net worth? Well, it's assets over liabilities equals net worth. Same thing here. Assets over liabilities equals self-worth. But if you're only focusing on the L's and not looking at those as lessons, you're looking at them as liabilities and limiting beliefs, well, you're never going to go amplify the asset, right? And what's greater, a positive or a negative? The positive. The positive always eliminates the negative. It's not the other way around, right? And so when someone's looking at their life, like they must first decide, I've had enough. Because if you only focus on the problem, well, guess what you're going to find? Like the problem, if you just look at it as the problem that you haven't found a solution for, your mind is going to look for that solution. So you've got to get out of your own way. Like no one's coming to save you. Zero. Like the government isn't, Mark Moss isn't, Nick Long isn't, no one's coming to save you. Like, I don't want to make this a biblical conversation, but I always say there's only one Savior and didn't work out so well for that dude. He got crucified.
Yeah.
But most of us put ourselves on this self-inflicted cross and we want to stay there because we'd rather it be something outside of us than the measuring stick that you're talking about, which is the reflection back of the value we're creating in this world.
Yeah. So now we have this big wealth transfer. Let's jump into that. And we have, like based off my estimations, about 12 million businesses, I think, that are going to change hands. Now, the problem is that these are owned by boomers, and there's a problem, but problems equal solutions. That's the one thing I talk about quite a bit is that, everyone's like, oh, AI is going to replace everybody and take everybody's jobs and this and that. And I'm like, really? Do you think there's ever a world that we get to where humans no longer have problems?
Right.
Because as long as there's problems,
there's problem solvers.
We're going to need solutions.
Right.
Like there's always, like as long as you could solve a problem, there's always going to be, no matter how good the world gets, there's going to be problems, right? But anyway, so about 12 million businesses are going to be transferred. And this is an opportunity for those business owners, and then we'll talk about if you're not a business owner. So this applies to everybody. But these business owners, is about 12 million businesses, boomers. And like my dad had a construction business for however many decades. His phone just rang off the hook. Lots of money, provided a very good rate, raised us pretty well. But none of the kids wanted the business. Right. And he just shut it down. Like that could have been worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, right? But he just shut it down. He didn't know. And so if we estimate that, let's say 40% of those 12 million businesses just get shut down, like my dad's business, we still have, 6 million, 7, 8 million businesses that are going to be sold. If you break that down by 10 years, that's about 400,000 businesses a year in a market that's absorbing 35,000 businesses a year. So that is a problem for people that want to sell their business. It's an opportunity for people that would like to start a business. Let's talk about the people that want to sell their business.
Yeah, the people that want to sell the business, and this is where I come in, is because the reason why more businesses don't get sold is not because desire. It's lack of knowledge and lack of resource, right? And so I call it exitation, right? When you sell a business, it's called an exit, right? You exited your company. You heard he said multiple exits, X amount of exits. He just exited 4. So this idea of an exit from the business you were in, there's a lack of education in and around exits. I call it exitation. Most people are an entrepreneur. Very few ever become an exitpreneur. But most people start out wanting to someday sell their business, but they don't start with the end in mind. And so the problem that we're constantly solving, and you heard a call earlier, is people just what am I going to do with it? Mm-hmm. Well, you're going to sell it to who? Well, to the multitude of buyers that are out there that don't know you exist and you don't know they exist, right? So like any new process, if you and I want to go play pickleball, we got to learn how to play the game.
Right.
And so the first thing that entrepreneurs, baby boomers can do is they can get a hefty dose of exitation. Then there's this great resource called YouTube. There's this great resource called Google. There's this great resource called AI. And there's this great resource called Next 90, which is what we do, is we give them we have an execution side to our business where we're just helping them understand what their business is worth, what it could be worth, and how to go about extracting that worth in the most simplistic form. Because you wouldn't believe how many businesses, and I'm sure you do, but I'm just generally speaking, get shut down. And do you think that wealth goes away? No.
It goes to the other businesses that stay there.
Right. Those customers, like, they end up finding a home. They don't stop buying because XYZ window cleaning went out of business or shut the business down. They just go to the next one down the road, right? Or worse yet, a business owner sells their business short of what it could be sold for. That's almost as heartbreaking as the previous one, where that value in that business didn't disappear. It just transferred to the new owner. And the only reason it transferred to that new owner is because that owner had the knowledge that the entrepreneur lacked.
Yeah.
And so they were playing the rigged game. Therefore, they won said game.
Yeah.
Right. And so, what we tell people to start with is, and you heard me as my analogy is understand the 2 waypoints. The waypoint number 1 is, where are you? Exactly. Like, what is your business worth? What's the good, the bad, the ugly, kind of evaluation, go to market, assessment, right? And understanding, like, this is where my feet are right now. And then the second thing is, where do you ultimately want to go? Like, pick a concise destination. And this could be both time and transaction based. So it could be 2 years, $5 million, 1 year, $3 million, or it could just be the moment I hit $5 million, right? But pick something, pick that destination, as I said, and don't be married to the pathway of getting there. Just be very clear and vigilant on what that destination is. And then once you understand 2 waypoints, guess what you can do? Turn by turn directions to get there.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Like, once you create what I call the gap, where you are, where you want to be, then you can reverse engineer the map, right? Which we refer to as the massive action plan, to get from point A to point E, the exit.
Yeah, I think of it in the investing world. When I talk about people's finances, I think about it like something you do every day. You'd open up Google Maps. And so, like, to come here, for example, you can't just say, like, oh, take me somewhere cool, or take me to a podcast studio, or take me to Mark's podcast studio. You'd have to put in an actual location.
Right.
And then it would ask you where you're at.
Right.
And you can't say, oh, I'm in California, or I'm in the, like, no, you have to put an actual.
Right.
So you need exact coordinates of each place. And then if you're using Google Maps, it's going to say, well, are you on bike or train or car? And it's going to give you different routes for each one, right?
And it actually will give you one that says, here's the toll road, but you have to pay for that.
Right. Do you want to pay for the toll road to speed up? Like, hire a coach?
Right.
Or do you? And most people just have never really taken time to think through their life in that detail. Like, what do I want for my business, and what is that exit ramp I'm looking for, kind of a thing. Now, in this type of wealth transfer that's happening, as I said, there's all these businesses are going to transfer, potentially 10 times more businesses selling than we have currently going on. That creates what's known as a buyer's market. That means it's very hard for sellers to sell their businesses and get the amount of money they'd want, because there's just way too many people trying to sell, not enough buyers. So the business owners should, they need to make their business more competitive. And part of it is sort of like to the point that you're making, which is heartbreaking for you, is seeing people leave a lot of money on the table because they haven't done a couple things to, in a house, you might repaint it or change the carpet before you sell it.
Move a wall.
And there's a couple things you can do with your business to get the value up, but also in this competitive environment, you have to make it more friendly as well. So what are some of the things that a business owner could do? Yeah,
and you're not wrong. And I believe it is a buyer's market at the moment, because I think the buyers have the knowledge that the sellers don't. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to right size that. So the challenge is, right now, statistically speaking, 1 out of every 700 business owners actually gets the outcome that they want. 1 in 700.
Wow.
Like 1 in 700. Like out of the 700, only 70 will sell, and only 1 will get the outcome they desired.
Wow.
Because most never think about it. And I use this joke all the time that, what do you call a building that you build that has an entrance but no exit? A prison, right? And so entrepreneurs are typically the best prison architects in the world.
Yeah.
But they forgot that if they built the entrance, they also can take the time to build the exit. And so to your point, one of the things that they can do is they can start to work on what I call the transferability of that business, right? What does that mean? That means that they have like an infrastructure, that the business works without them. You know, we call it the Mexico theory. Like me and Mark are sitting here and we're like, you know what, let's go have some tacos down in Mexico. And you and I just go on a rager, you know, and we don't come back. Our cell phones don't work. No one can get a hold of us. What does our business look like when we get back? Like, did we create enough infrastructure to have it work without us? Or is it so reliant on us that the moment we leave, the whole thing implodes? Like, so the first thing they can...
Well, I can tell you, if you create a personal brand business and you make content for a living, it can't really work without you. But yeah.
But when you make content, though, your content is working 24/7.
Right. Yeah.
You know? So
this piece of content is going to make me money for a long time.
Actually, there's a great slide. You spoke at our Generation Exit Tour, and you created this great slide, and it said the phases of exits. And I actually,
5 levels,
I actually use this 5 levels in a lot of my talks now. I stole it from you. Thank you, by the way. So it's in, out, or in, on, above, out, right?
Right.
So you got to go from working in the business to on the business to above the business and eventually out of the business. And you have this whole great, like, documented way of doing that.
Right.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant, you know? And so I say you have to have many, MINI, exits on the way to a meaningful actual exit. So you have these mini exits. Exit like the day-to-day, exit the cash flow constraints, exit the unpredictableness of marketing, exit the up and down sales. Like, and then you work on the business, and then you get people to come in and you work above the business. And then once you get there, it's only a matter of time before you're out of the business.
Yeah. I think I talked about it at your event. And just ask yourself, like, is this a business I would buy?
Yeah.
And because you either sell your business or you buy your business. So if this is not if it's your business, but you wouldn't buy it, well, you kind of did. If you can't sell it, like, you bought it, right? And so, like, you wouldn't want to buy a business that can't be run without you. So, but if you have that business, so maybe we don't have a whole lot of time. Maybe you could throw out a couple things that maybe the average business owner could think about in a way to increase the value of their business, sort of the marketability of their business.
Yeah. One is look at, like, one of the big things that you can do right away is look at your revenue concentration. What does that mean? Like, how is your revenue, like, brought in by customer? Do you have one customer that's 30-40% of your business? That's bad. That's very bad. It might be good for cash and cash flow. It's very bad from a valuation perspective. You want to have no customer be more than, ideally, 10%. You could probably get away with 15%, but, like, if you really want to crush it, 5%. You know, for some of the businesses, that's not relevant. The second question is how much of my revenue is recurring versus reoccurring, right? So recurring means contractual, subscription, predictable, month in, month out revenue that's coming in that you don't have to go out and curate every time, every month. Reoccurring means it happens frequently, like it's a customer you've had for a long time, but they're not under contract. So the more contractual revenue that you can generate, or you can figure out how to get your existing customers sell more to the same people on recurring revenue, that increases the valuation tremendously. The other thing I already touched about is a transferability. Build infrastructure, invest. Instead of saying I can't afford it, say I can't afford not to. I can't afford not to build this infrastructure because it's going to cost you so much more down the road.
And when you say infrastructure, you're talking about can the business run without you?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. If you have not built a business that can't run without you, like, you have a very expensive hobby, you don't have a business.
Right.
You're owned by the business.
You have a job.
Yeah, you're owned by the business, not a business owner.
Yeah, you created a job. And it's one thing I talk about. You know, I talk about at another event at my ranch that you spoke at. We talked about like, what does being wealthy mean to you? And everybody that I pulled, 99% of the people say it's being free, financially free, time freedom is what they say.
Right.
So if really what you want is time freedom, not $1 billion, but time freedom, well, you have a business. Could you just set it up in a way that it gives you time freedom?
100%.
Unfortunately, most people don't, and
Right.
they have that job.
Right, because most people don't have like the foresight of like, what do I really want from this business? Well, they know at a high level it's time and money freedom, and they find themselves with neither, less time and no money,
Yeah.
right? And so for me, it was a major shift when I built out my last company and I invested heavily into my C-suite level of executives. And for those of you that are entrepreneurs that don't know what a C-suite level of executive is, probably want to research that. It's the CEO, CRO, CMO, CFO, the chief whatever officer of your company. I held out forever because I was like, what? That person costs $225,000 a year? Yeah, because they're really good at what they do. And then they came in, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, I got all this time to now go create another $1 million worth of income. So building out your hierarchy of your accountability chart, we don't even call it a organizational chart because most of them aren't organized at all. We count it accountability. Who's accountable for this particular role? Right. Who's accountable for this particular KPI? One of the things that I see that keep people from making those key decisions is they have no financial literacy. They have no idea what their margins are. They have no idea what their gross profit is. They have no idea, what their expenses are. Like they do bank account accounting, which is I open my bank, I got money in there, we're making money. And that's not necessarily the truth. They have no idea what accounts receivable, accounts payable are. So that to me is sort of the epicenter. That's the beating heart of an organization is the financial health and the financial literacy of the entrepreneur. Just like people that are investing, what keeps most people from investing? Yeah.
Well, I mean, your business or your personal finances are the same, and you need to be keeping an eye on that all the time.
Exactly.
The big three, I call them, right? So it's like your P&L, your balance sheet, and your statement of cash flows, at least. If you're not looking at those monthly at a minimum.
Right.
And so you should be looking at those statements at least on a monthly basis. I mean, some people need to be looking at them on a weekly basis. And it's sort of like, there's a lot of things you should be doing that are sort of like that, like a hospital patient, right, hooked up to the machines and you see the pulse kind of a thing.
Right.
But yeah, you got to be paying attention.
Well, I always say that revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality, and cash flow is king.
Yeah.
Right? So most people go, I did $100 million this year. Yeah, but what did you make? How much money do you have in the bank?
Right.
What does your AP look like? What does your AR look like? Right. And so you have to understand that. For me, I kind of practice this ideology of core four. I have the CEO, C4. I have the core four as a human being. But I also say the core four in business is sales and marketing, finance, operations, and culture. And so you got to measure the vitality and the health of each one of those. And for me, the beating heart of that is the financial literacy component.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a boomer. I'm somebody who has a business. I don't want to be a slave to it. So I got to build the systems in place so it can run without me. If that means hiring people, if I need to, I need to be watching the finances of the business, the health of the business. And then if I have a business that can run without me and it's healthy financially, then there's a chance that somebody might want to buy it from me. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't necessarily have to sell it because if it can just run without me and it can just pay me every month or every year, maybe I just want to keep the business, right? And that's sort of one exit, the exit inside the business, and there's the exit outside the business. Let's shift gears and talk about now, as we maybe wrap this up, to the people who don't own businesses. And so, as I kind of said, I think this is sort of like a buyer's market.
Yeah.
And I know something that you want to do is sort of build this marketplace that allows people to do that. So there's a lot of people that don't own businesses right now. And there's sort of a movement of people trying to train people to go buy businesses. And on one hand, I like that because I can get $1 million business that's throwing off $300,000 a year of
free cash flow.
Free cash flow. I could get a business loan to buy that business. I pay $150K in debt service, and I have $150 free and clear.
Right. And not only that, you just bought a $1 million asset because let's just say that $300K trades at 4 times, free cash flow. So 4 times 3 is 12. So that's $1.2 million. You paid $150,000 for $1.2 million.
Right.
And you still have the asset.
Right.
It's the craziest thing.
Right. So here I am, Joe worker, clocking in my cubicle every day, but it's man, I'd like to make that jump. Well, just go to the bank and get a loan and, I don't know, build up your credit first. And there's steps that have to be done, but it's possible, right? Get a business loan, buy the business. But at the same time, like, not everybody has, back to the skills and relationships, not everybody has the skills to actually run that business.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Is it setting people up for disaster, buying a business they don't know anything about? How would somebody, in your opinion, from selling businesses, how would somebody that maybe wants to buy a business think about that?
Right. So we've all heard knowledge is power, and I say that's bullshit. I'd say knowledge applied is power. Knowledge is knowledge. Like, in knowledge in the hands of someone that doesn't do good with it is ignorance, actually. So first of all is to educate yourself on, like, what we're talking about. Like, what is a P&L? What is a balance sheet? What is cash flow? I would probably start there, right? Because there's plenty of resources out there. I would highly encourage people, if you're coming in new into business, don't build a business, buy a business and build a business. Absolutely do that. Buy a business rather than build a business. Like, because you and I both know, like, the initial inertia, man, to get that started, the 0 to 1, oh my gosh, like startup mode, it's miserable.
Yeah.
If
you could buy a business that's running like a good machine.
Well, and you could probably buy a business that has, it's like buying a rusty car, it's got some bumps and bruises.
Fixer-upper house.
A fixer-upper house.
Change the carpet, paint the walls.
Right. Put a new engine in it, right? So, but first of all, I would go after something I'm passionate about. Like, I would go into something that I'm gonna, like, be compelled and driven to get up every single day and want to do it, because being a business owner, being an entrepreneur is gut wrenching.
I used to preach that, and I think that's a little bit of a scam.
You think it's a little altruistic?
My very first business, my real business, where I actually had a building and an office and employees, and I remember it was in the medical space. And like, I'm a dirt biker, I'm a surfer. I want to be in action sports. I want to be a pro athlete. The last thing I want to do is be in the medical space. And when people used to ask me, like, oh, do you love your business? And I'm like, no, I hate it. It's in the medical space. I want to be a pro athlete. What am I doing over here, right? But I changed my frame of mind to, I didn't like being in the medical space, but I loved owning my own business. And so rather than looking at myself as like, oh, here's Mark working in a medical industry, I looked at myself as, look at Mark, the entrepreneur, running the dials. And so when I think about passion, like, for me, well, I guess I should try to figure out how I can make money surfing or make money riding dirt bikes.
Yeah,
and, like, no one's going to pay me for those things.
I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, you gotta love, like, fall in love with being a business owner, but you got to fall in love with the business that you're in. I mean, or otherwise it's like being in a marriage that just doesn't work, in my personal opinion, And I'll give you an example. Like, to your point, is that, like, when I was doing solar, like, did I really, like, love solar? No, but what I loved is building my solar business. I loved the people of the business. I loved what we could do as a company, as selling this solar product, But I also think there has to be some sort of, like, baseline knowledge of what you're doing, or else you're just going to get murdered,
I think like, for me, like, so there's a lot of entry-level businesses. They could be a lot of mom-and-pop businesses, so mailbox stores, dry cleaners, laundromats, like, things like that, right? And, like, I may not be passionate about that, but, like, it's kind of like a simple enough business that I could sort of understand. If I'm a new entrepreneur, I can kind of understand it. I kind of get it, and it allows me to kind of get my feet wet, learn business, and start making some money. And then you can start to kind of think about those other things. At the same time, to the point, I would certainly agree, you don't want to do something you hate.
Right.
Because it does take a lot of work to be good at it.
Or you don't want to do something you have no knowledge
or
of.
no knowledge about, right?
Like, I mean, I would get setting up this studio, like, I would have no effing clue, Right. I'd probably burn the place down and electrocute myself in the process. So I'm I'm probably not gonna do well in the studio building business, because it just doesn't even. It's so vast in the knowledge that I need to have. But, like, for example, we're actually buying a company right now, and I can't say which company, but we're buying a company right now that's coming through the process. And I love what this person does. Like, I haven't thought about this as a business, but I was like, wow, that's really cool. I can get behind that. And I saw that my skill set of marketing and lead gen married up well with that business. So that's an example, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what what I'm trying to edify here is the fact that like do something that you have some baseline knowledge that you can get excited about and that you're willing to go all in on. If you're not willing to go all in, don't even start the journey.
I 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah.
If you just want to dabble, just light your money on fire.
Yeah, no, it's an all-in proposition.
And I will agree, regardless if it's a dry cleaner, laundromat, or whatever it is, one, I would probably recommend new people to start with a service-based business. It's probably a little bit more simple. But it's going to be a lot of work either way. It is. And if you don't like to do the work, then it's always going to be a drag. You'll never put the amount of time in that's required. And so you got to like it.
You got to love it. Like you got to just love working hard. Like, how about that? You know, if you're not going to work hard, get the hell out of the way. Yeah, because you're doing yourself a disservice, your family a disservice, and more importantly, your employees and the people you serve a disservice.
Yeah, and you got to like it. And that's one thing I've been talking about recently. You know, the poor mindset is that they want to make enough money in mostly my world investing. They want to make enough money where they don't ever have to work again.
Right.
I'm like, well, then why do all billionaires still work?
Right, because they're contributors. And
it's not about not working.
Yeah.
It's about not doing what you hate.
Right.
So great. So don't do that. Don't do what you hate.
Right. Like most people that I know that are really wealthy, they love working. They love it.
Yeah.
And you're a great example, like that you've kind of integrated your life into your work. You know, so you're in Mexico or you're down here, you're down there, like. I think you said, like, my goal is just to live like I was retired.
Yeah.
You know, I love
many retirements throughout my whole life.
Yeah.
And kind of like a lion, right? Like a lion sleeps most of the time and then it runs really hard after prey. So it's like when I'm home, I'll sprint really hard here, and then every other week I take a trip somewhere.
And that's what you want. And that's what the life that you
Because for me, it's like
that destination. The destination.
Have
the destination. And so to loop up what you're saying about buying a business, like, loop the business into the destination. Have the destination first. Is it a dollar amount? Is it a time frame? Is it a time freedom thing? Like, what does that look like? And then find the thing that aligns with that. Yeah. Because that's going to get you fired up.
So Nick, if I'm a business owner or want to be a business owner, like, how can you help me out? How can I get a hold of you? What should I be paying attention to?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, we have an ethos of like no entrepreneur left behind, right? And we have another thing that we want to turn entrepreneurs into exitpreneurs, and that starts with Exitation. So Exitation starts with a conversation, right? And so the best,
all these catchphrases.
I know the best place. It's miserable. The best place to find me is actually on Instagram. It's just at Nick Long, just my name, NickLong. In my profile, there's a little link. It's theexitpreneur.com, and you can fill out a form and have a conversation with one of our team members, and eventually me. And, the conversation is free, but not having the conversation could cost you literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. In fact, Mark, talking about the transfer of wealth, one of the things that we've been really good is finding the hidden value in businesses. And since February, okay, this is since February, over 100 businesses, we've found over $250 million of hidden value that would have transferred to the new owner had they not gone through our process. The average is 2.7 million.
Wow.
The smallest amount that we found, over 100 businesses, was $42,000.
Wow.
$42,000. That money doesn't disappear. It's a current, and it just transfers to whoever is the conduit. So in a transaction, the person with the most knowledge is likely going to win. So you owe it to yourself as an entrepreneur to educate yourself on the exit process and finish what you started, which was to have time and financial freedom. So take the time, and eventually you'll get the financial freedom.
Boom. That's it. Love it.
Mic drop.